Let's begin by reading the question. You decide to begin selling bottles of water at the local Star Wars convention. Your cost for each bottle of water is $1.34, plus you have a fixed weekly rate of $100 for the booth. Your plan is to sell each bottle of water for $3.32. And in the questions, we're asked to find the total cost, the revenue, and the profit. So, first let's think about what's varying here and what's fixed. So we know that the cost for each bottle is $1.34 for you. Okay. And we also know that the fixed fee for the booth is $100. So this is fixed at $100 and the cost is fixed at $1.34, but this can change. This is going to be variable because we don't know how many bottles of water you're going to buy and therefore sell. So since here I'm noticing they call it N bottles of water, we're going to have N equals the number of bottles sold. Okay. And therefore your cost for N bottles of water is 1.34 times N. So you're going to pay $1.34 for each bottle. So if it was one bottle, you'd multiply $1.34 times 1. If it was 10 bottles, you'd multiply $1.34 times 10. Or in general, you'd multiply $1.34 times the number of bottles sold. So your total costs are the water cost plus the cost of the booth. So that's going to equal $1.34 per bottle plus the $100 for the booth. So let's write that in here. 134N plus 1,000. Okay. Now let's think about the next question. Asks us to write an algebraic expression for the revenue. And revenue is the money taken in. So by that I mean your profit would be the money you earn minus the amount of costs that you had. And that's what we're going to find next. The revenue is, you can think of it as how much money you'd have in your till the end of the day. So maybe you, at the end of the day or week, you have $1,000, but you didn't really make $1,000. You took in a revenue of $1,000. You still had to pay for the water and the booth. So the revenue is, in this case, you're selling each bottle for $3.32 per bottle. And again, notice the word per because that usually tells us that it's a rate. So if you sold one bottle, you'd make 1 times $3.32. If you sold 2 bottles, it'd be $2 times $3.32. And if you sold N bottles, it would be N times $3.32, which we like to write as $3.32N. So this represents our revenue. $3.32 times the number of bottles you sell. Now let's look at our profit. So profit is equal to the revenue minus the costs. So like we said before, the revenue is all the money you get in, so that $3.32 a bottle. But we still have to subtract off that you paid $1.34 per bottle and you paid $100 to rent the booth. So we have $3.32N minus, and in parentheses, I'm going to put 134n plus 100. So I basically took the revenue equation and subtracted the cost equation. And notice the cost equation is in parentheses because we need to subtract this entire expression. Okay? If we didn't put parentheses, it would just look like we were subtracting the 134n and adding 100, but we need to subtract 100 for our profit because we need to pay $100. So now we'll distribute just so we can simplify this expression. So minus 134n minus 100. Now we'll use the calculator. Since these are like terms, we can subtract the coefficient. So 332 minus $1.34 equals 198. So these two subtracted are 198n, and then we have the minus 100. So let's write that up here, 198n minus 100. And let's just make sense of what this means, because the algebra can make it seem complicated, but you're paying 332, or you're charging $3.32 for every bottle of water, and you're paying $1.34 per bottle of water. Well, that means if we subtract 332 minus 134, your profit will be $1.98 per bottle of water. And then we also have to subtract off the cost for renting the booth. So that's what this expression means. Now we're asked a few more questions here where we're just going to need to evaluate. So it says, if you sell 410 items, your total cost for the week will be, well, here's our cost equation. So we have 1.34n plus 100. And it's giving us, we're selling 410 items. Remember, that's the number of bottles. So we're given n equals 410. So we're going to find 134 times 410 plus 100. And I'm going to do this on the calculator. So $1.34 times 410 bottles sold. So purchasing 410 bottles would cost $549.40, and then we have to add on the $100 for the cost of renting the booth. So our cost would be $649.40. Now let's move over here for the next question. I made some more room. Now it says, find your revenue from selling 410 bottles. Well, here's our revenue equation. 332n, and n equals 410. So again, this is saying we're charging $3.32 a bottle, where n is the number of bottles. If we sell 410 bottles, how much money is in our till at the end of the day? So it would be 332 times the 410 bottles, 1361.20. Okay, and notice algebraically, it would be 332, replace the n with 410 in parentheses, and multiply. So your revenue would be 1361.20. And now we're asked to find the profit for selling 410 bottles. So notice, we know the revenue, we know the total cost. We can just subtract these to find the profit. And let's do that first. I'm just going to subtract off 649.40. and it's 711.18. Is that 18 or 80? 80. Okay. But now let's just verify this using our profit equation. So our profit equation says that we make 198 times the number of bottles minus $100, replacing N, the number of bottles, with 410. It'd be 198 times 410 minus 100. And let's just use the calculator for this. So 198 times 410 minus, oops, forgot the decimal. 198 times 410 minus 100. And notice we get the same result, 711.80. So that's a nice way to check our work to make sure that we've computed correctly and made the correct formula.